Shalom. I want to give all the praise, all the glory, all the honor unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah, Kodash. Double honors goes out to the elder apostles of Great Millstone for teaching me the truth. Also want to acknowledge all the Akyam who are pushing the truth with sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth. A shalom to the elect of the nation of Israel. This is the brother Shabai from the GMS Denver camp, and I'm going to just go in on, I'm going to play this video. I haven't even seen the whole thing. I just kind of read a little bit of an article. But just a lesson, going in on these women, and how they can damage you and how they can, they're a huge distraction if you're part of the ministry. Most women are going to be just a major distraction, So, let me just play this video and then I'll bring out some precepts. Let's see if I can get it to go.
Come on!
Okay.
Boosting up into the sky and then coming down. That is so sick.
Salakia. Right, here we go.
A civil trial is expected to begin today against former Dolphin star and wide receiver Tyreek Hill.
A social media influencer and model Sophie Hall is suing Hill, alleging that he fractured her leg during what she described as a friendly football lesson gone wrong.
Local 10's Jolina Esperto is live in Fort Lauderdale with the latest from court. Jolina.
Yeah, former Miami Dolphins wide receiver Tyreek Hall is being sued by that social media influencer Sophie Hall. She says he purposefully and violently broke her leg after she embarrassed him. And now, nearly 3 years afterwards, the two face each other inside the courtroom. Nearly 100 potential jurors questioned ahead of a civil trial involving former Miami Dolphins wide receiver Tyreek Hill. They were asked if they knew him. If so, could they remain unbiased? Social media influencer and model Sophie Hall claims Hill broke her leg during a football drill at a Southwest Ranches home nearly 3 years ago. Both were present for jury selection. According to the 15-page complaint, Hill and Hall met in May of 2023 after Hill reached out to her on social media and invited her to stay at his house. So the lawsuit claims, unfortunately, after getting humiliated in front of his friends and family when he was knocked backwards during a friendly football lesson by his friend Sophie Hall, Tyreek became enraged and forcefully and purposefully shoved Miss Hall, severely fracturing her leg, requiring surgery with orthopedic reconstruction and hardware implantation. Hall claims Hill downplayed her injury and failed to get her any medical attention. Hill was released from the Dolphins in February. He spent 4 seasons with the team, and his time in South Florida was not without controversy. From a brief traffic detainment outside of Hard Rock Stadium, citations in that incident were dismissed to a reported domestic violence incident in Sunny Isles Beach that included his estranged wife. And Hill has had a lengthy history of domestic violence accusations. Back in 2015, he pled guilty to strangling his pregnant ex-girlfriend. Now, Hall, she is suing for $50,000 in damages. She's claiming assault, battery, and negligence. But Hill and his team, they say she was the negligent one. She should have known the risk coming with practicing football. But they've selected 6 jurors, and they're expected to start the trial today, 1 p.m. We'll be inside the courtroom, and we'll bring you the latest. But for now, I'm reporting live from Broward County, Jolina Esperto, Local 10 News.
So the thing is, making good choices with these women, you gotta, and they sound like, because I didn't know the whole length of the story, but here's the deal. These people are, first of all, it's Jake. They're against Jake, right? You can see how they went through all his, his faults as far as like the different things that were going on in his life. A lot of that didn't even have nothing to do with his case, what the story was about. That woman who in the hell is going to go to Tyreek Hill's, who's going to go to his house and practice football drills in front of his family? That shit just sounds funky in itself, But You know, and this is obviously this wasn't a. It doesn't. I mean, it could have been a domestic issue, but from that little clip, it doesn't sound like they were like a serious item or a couple or whatever. But you could tell this lady's just trying to get some money from old Tyreek Hill, you know. Talking about her leg is fractured and this and that. And she was doing football drills in his backyard or wherever in front of his family. So it sounds like it was consensual, you know. She ended up getting injured. But that's the thing with these women, you know, you got to be careful with who you deal with, especially in this day and age, you know. And that's a big reason why, you know, our elders have always told us, you know, if you're in the ministry, it's better to be without a wife, you know. Let's get that verse real quick. Because you don't really want to be messing around with these women who, especially if you don't know them, you know, you really want to test a woman before you make her part of your life, you know. And really, you know, the stage of the game we're in right now, you probably don't even want to mess with these women as far as, you know, being serious with them. In that story, it doesn't seem like they were serious. Maybe they, you know, maybe he popped her a few times or whatever, and now she feels like she's entitled because she's over there playing football at his house, you know. Who even does that, you know what I'm saying? This is let's see. Let's see. Let me see. This is not the one I was looking for. But I'll read 1 Corinthians verse 7. It says, well, let's start at 7. 1 Corinthians 7:7. It says, for I would that all men were even as I myself, but every man hath his proper gift of the Most High, one after this manner and another after that. I say therefore to the unmarried and widows, it is good for them if they abide even as I. Okay? And Paul, he didn't have a woman, you know, so that's what he's talking about. So if you're in the ministry, it's really better to be, you know, without a wife. If you don't have a wife, you know, you don't need to be looking for a wife, because we know the prophecies. We know that the women are going to come, right? We know that Isaiah 4:1 is going to come to pass. But you know, I'll just put all a few verses, because like I said, I hadn't watched the video. And then once I watched the video, it wasn't really about him and her being together. It looked just like he probably popped her a few times. She was over at his house playing football and got hurt, and now she's trying to get some money. And then you could see how the media, they go and demonize Jake, talking about all these other cases that didn't have nothing to do with the case that was you know, that they were trying to settle in the courtroom in that particular story. But yeah, you know, if you don't have a wife and you're in the ministry, it's actually a good thing, you know, because most of the time women are a distraction in this thing of ours. And I've been in both cases, you know. I had a woman for a while I was in the truth, and she was, you know, she was more of a hindrance than a good thing for me while I was, you know, preaching and prophesying and doing the work of Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushai. Let's go to Proverbs real quick. Proverbs 21:9. It says, it is better to dwell in a corner of the housetop than with a brawling woman in a wide house. Okay? So it's better to, be in the corner of a housetop than with a brawling woman in a white house. You might have a big ass house like, Tyreek Hill. He probably has a big ass house. But it would be better for him to dwell by himself in a corner of a housetop than to dwell with a woman, which I'm sure he might have been courting that woman. He might have been, putting the moves on her, and maybe, considering being with that woman. She was good looking, But the thing is you you got to be wise with these women, because they are a detriment to us men, especially here in Babylon, because they've got so much liberty and freedom, and then they don't have the women in this society are pretty much head cases. They don't have what I'm saying. They're fucking crazy. Just look around you, look at the men that have women. Look at how stressed out majority of them are. Look how much they talk shit about their wives, and vice versa, right? Marriage in Babylon is a joke, okay? And it's because, this is not our rest, for one. And, if you get a wife here, chances are she's got social media. She's got all kind of men hitting her up. She's not going to be a modest woman. These women, they like to dress like hoes, revealing all their goods to every man, to everybody on social media. So and I wish I didn't have to sound like this speaking about our women, but it's just the truth, because when the wicked rule, this is what you get. You see, it says, let's read this. When the scorner is punished, the simple is made wise. And when the wise is instructed, he receiveth knowledge. Okay, so the thing is if you're going through some shit, especially with a woman, you're gonna learn from the mistakes you make, right? The wise was instructed, he receives knowledge. So especially if you're of the elect, you have that spirit of the elect on you, you go through some type of situation with these women, and like what Tyreek Hill's going through, you're gonna gain some wisdom out of that. You're gonna make a better decision, right? You're gonna be more thoughtful in as far as choosing a woman, even if you're just gonna pop her or whatever. You got to be careful, Let me see. And like I said, that video really wasn't what I was expecting. I thought it was a woman that he had been dealing with. But so it kind of don't have a lot of precepts off the top for this lesson. But the thing is Babylon America is on a decline. It's about to, collapse financially. It's going to collapse. Spiritually, it's collapsed already, except for the men who are of the elect, the men and women. Because right now it's mainly men, because the women are going to have to be humbled before they actually come into the truths with sincerity. You may have a few sisters out there that are in a humble, contrite spirit, but the majority of these women, it's like I say, the devil has led them astray, man. You go to Genesis 3, it's the same thing that happened in the garden, right? It said, let's see here. Let's go to 3. Genesis 3. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which Yahweh the Most High had made. And he said unto the woman, yeah, hath the Most High said, yeah, you shall not eat of every tree of the garden. All right, and the trees are dealing with people, men. It's not talking about actual trees. And the woman said unto the serpent, we may eat the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, the Most High Yahweh hath said, ye shall not eat of it. Okay? So the thing is you, you know, you're not, this is actually talking about, you know, the trees, and the serpent is that, is the devil, the so-called white man in the flesh, right? He's the devil, Satan, manifested into the flesh. So basically, you know, he's going to give you women the liberty and tell and deceive you, right? He's going to beguile you women, trick you into thinking you could do certain things and you can act certain ways, and there won't be no punishment. That's what he was doing to Eve in the garden. Okay, and the thing is Eve was not talking to a serpent. Okay, that's a metaphor, that's a parable for the so-called white man, who is, you know, the basically the devil manifested in the flesh. He's got that wicked spirit, you know, on him, because it's wicked the way he's taught the women to be. You know, that because of him, all these women, you know, are destroying themselves, because they follow, they have all the liberty, and they have so much. There's a saying, you give a woman enough rope and she's going to hang herself. And that's basically what Esau, Edom did in the case of these women, you know. So that's what it is, though, you know. These women, they don't realize that they, you know, they follow the ways of the so-called white man. You know, they believe in his philosophies. They believe in all they believe everything he says, and it turns out to the point where he's just deceiving you women. You know, they have led thee to have caused thee to err, you know, is the scripture that comes to mind. All right, like let's grab that real quick. It's in Isaiah 3:2. It says, I'm sorry, but 3:12. It says, and Esau's going to pay, you know, even though he's got our women in the wrong mindset. You know, our women, they don't respect their men, you know. They respect their Edomite bosses and shit more than they respect their men at home. They respect their bosses at work more than they respect their men at home, you know. They're sitting there and kissing Esau's ass. Meanwhile, they got it full of attitude with their husbands, you know. This is Isaiah 3:11. It says, woe unto the wicked, it shall be ill with him, for the reward of his hands shall be given him. As for so that Esau's gonna get he's gonna get what he deserves, you know, turning our women against us and shit. That's what Esau, Edom has done. Matter of fact, I saw this girl had made a post, and I thought she was a decent girl. I didn't really know her, right? But I thought she was halfway decent. And you know, men of the Lord, we're in this truth. We see scandalous things that these women do, and it's a big ass turn off, okay? But she's basically putting out her dirty laundry on social media, right? These bitches screenshotting texts of their exes. The ex seemed like he's, you know, he probably still loves her, sincere. She's a good-looking woman, and you know, and then she's posting the personal, private texts that they're sending among each other, just to make herself, in her mind, she thinks she looked cool. But a person who's wise looks at that stuff, and it's like, that's a big ass, not even a turn off, because it's not like we're considering her to be a woman, one of our women, but it's just like, damn, this bitch has no integrity, you know. This dude over here trying to tell her that he still cares about her, and she's putting it on social media, you know, and talking shit to him on the text. And it's because Esau, Edom has got you women in that prideful mindset. So he's going to pay for that, you know. A lot of our homes and our households have been destroyed and broken up because of the the belief system, the lack of morals here in Babylon. And so you got, I mean, look at this bitch trying to get money off Tyreek Hill. And just because she was, you know, like I say, she probably bitter because he didn't choose her as his main woman, and she got hurt over there while they're, you know, playing football in the backyard and shit. And now she wants $50,000. You know, that's, I mean, there's red flags all over that situation. You see, but the thing is these women, they don't know their place in Babylon. Okay, they don't know their place. And, you know, a lot of women are going to watch this video and get all pissed off. And we're fed up with you women. I did a video about a week ago that's talking about how the prophets are fed up with the wicked Israelites, the 2/3. And we're fed up with you women too, man. You know, you women, y'all can kick rocks, especially if you got a Babylonian mindset. We don't want no part of you, you know. We might smash and pass, you know. That's about it, you know. But this is Isaiah 3:11. It says, "Woe unto the wicked, it shall be ill with him, for the reward of his hand shall be given him. As for my people, children are their oppressors, and women rule over them." And man, this prophecy is heavy in Babylon. Women rule over these men, you know. The majority of these men in Babylon, they got no say in their household. They can't put their foot down with the children. They can't put their foot down with their teenage kids or whatever. You know what I'm saying? All the kids and all the women rule over these households in Babylon. And that's totally out of order. Okay? "O my people, they which lead thee cause thee to err, and destroy the way of thy paths." Okay? And who's leading our people right now? You know, the majority of our people are led by Esau Edom, the so-called white man, the serpent. The one that was telling Eve in the garden, hey, go ahead and eat that fruit. Eat of that tree, right? And by the way, you know, the scriptures never speaks about Eve eating an apple, all right? Because you got the pagan Christians that be talking about that. Everybody's like, oh yeah, Eve ate the apple. Like, all it says is the fruit of the garden on the tree, the tree of knowledge, which that was forbidden. Which that in that time that was, you know, that was a like I say, the trees, the serpent, all represents the wicked, and the trees represent men. Okay, let's go to Ezekiel. I think it's in 36:9, maybe. Let me see. Ezekiel 36:9. No. Let me see. What is it? Ezekiel 36:11, maybe. Let's see. No, that's not it either. Let me see. Oh, 31:9. Ezekiel 31:9, it says, "The cedars in the garden of the Most High could not hide him." This is talking about Adam. "The fir trees were not like his boughs, and the chestnut trees were not like his branches. Nor any tree in the garden of the Most High was like unto him in his beauty. I have made him fair by the multitude of his branches." That's talking about Adam, you know, who he was not technically an Israelite, but he was, you know, the chosen line in the spirit, right? Which Adam, obviously, you know, he was an Israelite in the spirit because he was before, you know, Jacob, as in Jacob and Esau. But the thing is it says the multitude of his branches because what? Because Adam, he basically in the spirit represented Israelites, and the multitude of his branches is talking about, you know, because we know that the Israelites are a great people in as far as numbers are concerned. It says, "So that all the trees of Eden that were in the garden of the Most High envied him." Okay, so now can a regular tree envy? You know, a tree that you have in your front yard, is it going to be jealous of you? No, it's a parable. The trees represent men, okay? So the thing about this is, you know, Eve, she was the one who was beguiled. She was the one who was tricked, not Adam. But it goes into the wickedness of the women, right? Let's see. And let's go to this. Because, that woman, she trying to get Tyreek's money, obviously. You go to Ecclesiastes 25 and 19. It says, all the wickedness is but little to the wickedness of a woman. Let the portion of a sinner fall upon her. Okay? So even in that case, right, she's trying to get 50 G's, for breaking her leg or fracturing her leg, whatever it is. And a fracture, when you fracture a bone, sometimes it's a tiny fracture, You could punch a freaking wall and have a small, minute fracture in your hand, So, like, her fracture, we didn't go into the details of that story with Tyreek Hill and that woman, but she might have had just a tiny little crack in her bone, and now she's trying to get 50K while she's just horsing around in his backyard, And that's wicked, You're the one who chose to go over there. You're the one who responded to the dude on social media. You're the one who, he was probably popping you. You probably got a little careless playing football in his backyard. You got hurt. Now you want his money. You see? See how you got to be careful with these women? And that's why it says all wickedness is but little to wickedness of a woman. Because if that scenario happened to a man, he's going to just move on. Yeah, I fell in Tyreek Hill's backyard. We were playing football and I kind of, hurt my leg, had a small hairline fracture. You're going to move on. You're going to sit here trying to get 50 G's from the man, But, and then for them to bring up all his other legal issues that had nothing to do with that case, that shows you how these Edomites don't like Jake, So, but anyway, I didn't really have a lesson planned. I just wanted to go in on that video. I was trying to find a story on the internet because I'm trying to get better at using stories from the internet, and then doing lessons as opposed to always teaching the scriptures right out of the chapters of the Bible, which, I don't know, we all have our own gift, our own way of teaching. But, through the Spirit, I was trying to find a story in the news so I can do a lesson, and that this is what came about. So like I said, I didn't have nothing planned, but I hope this lesson was oh, you know what, let me read this. I should read this. Ecclesiastes 25 and 21. It says, stumble not at the beauty of a woman and desire her not for pleasure. Okay, so that's a lesson right there. You don't want to because a woman's beautiful and good looking, you got to be careful with that. Look at Tyreek. He's up in the courthouse now, at risk of losing $50,000 just because he was after a good looking woman, and things, went south for him, So yeah, stumble not at the beauty of a woman and desire her not for pleasure. You got to be careful. We love women. We love the way they look, the way they smell, the way they taste, all that, the whole nine. But check it out. You got to be careful with these women, man. Let me read 24. Of the woman came the beginning of sin, and through her we all die. Right? That's how wicked and powerful the women are. Because of these women, we're gonna all, die. Those that are not, ordained to receive salvation, right? Because but the thing is we died in our past lives, so this curse already hit us. Lord's will, we're of that number that are going to go up in the chariot and not taste death, But the thing is, we've already died in our past lives. It's because of these women. It says, give the water no passage, neither a wicked woman liberty to gad abroad. If she go not as thou wouldest have her, cut her off from thy flesh, and give her a bill of divorce, and let her go. Okay, so a gad abroad is a social woman. And that girl, that he met her on social media, you know? So that's a perfect example. You don't want to be going after a woman who's, spends all her time on social media. A woman who's posting all her dirty laundry on social media. You don't want to, because if she's posting about some dude, one of her exes, you don't think she's going to post about you and screenshot and publish the private text messages. That's what I'm saying. These women, that's straight up just, not only is it immature, foolish, it's wicked, So be careful with these women, man. It says, if she go not as thou wouldest have her, cut her off from thy flesh and give her a bill of divorce and let her go. Yeah, if she doesn't listen to you, if she doesn't want to follow your lead, man, and she's causing you, headache, heartache, stress, let the bitch go, There's a lot of, like I say, there's tons of fish in the sea, all right? But if you get too deep, involved with a wicked woman, if you're not of the elect, if you're not a righteous man, you're going to have a hard time and you may never be able to shake that wickedness, all right? So, another cautionary tale for the men who are sincere in this ministry. Be careful with these women, So with that, I want to give all the praise, all the glory, all the honor unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah Kodash. Double honors goes out to the elder apostles of Great Millstone for teaching me the truth. I also want to acknowledge all the Akiam who are pushing the truth with sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth. Shalom to the elect.